Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, what life was like in the industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Comu. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites throughout communities in Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Springfield Our Lady of Hope Church. Where is the Our Lady of Hope Church?
Alright, this is a nice little church in Springfield, Massachusetts. It is at 474 Armory Street and 577 Carew Street. Now, today we're going to learn about the history of this church through its time, and that includes all the buildings, the church, rectory, school, convent, and then we'll talk about why everything's special right now. But this is a very gorgeous church made in a neoclassical style. And guess what? This is the year 2024. Next year is the 100th year anniversary of the church. It was made in 1925. That's the church itself. The parish or congregation of people making up is earlier from that, but we'll talk about that. And I always invite people to go see for themselves because you get a better sense of the arrangement of everything together and what it looks like. But I also invite you to go to the inside of it and see what it's like in there, because oftentimes you'll hear the organ, how well it is. You'll get the spirit of the people there, see the stained glass window, so forth.
And tell us about the history of the church.
Okay. The parish is the people that make up a Catholic church. And in 1906, in the Hunger Hill neighborhood, they started up the parish for themselves of Our Lady of the Hope. They had applied to the bishop and asked that they can get a parish for themselves going. So, the next year, 1907, they built up a wooden church. And that was right at the present position. So that was taken down at some point. And so they got their masses going, and of course you want to have a lot more to it. You want to build the congregation. And what happened from 1907 with a chapel, by 1925, they had the beautiful neoclassical church that they have there presently. It happens to be, once again, another creation by the architect John Donahue, who was based in Springfield most of his life. He was born there. And he designed many, many, many churches, mostly Catholic, and rectories, so forth. And he was quite prolific around the Springfield area, so he's well known around that area by religious types. So this architect, he's easy to find around Springfield and other locations. And if you want to know what his designs usually look like, there's usually a checkered look to his masonry, all right? And that checkered look is not used by many other people around Springfield, so it usually is a sign that he did it. Even up in Northampton at the St. John's Kintius Church, it has a checkered look, and when you look it up, yes, he's the architect. So he did it around Springfield, Northampton, Holyoke, but also in Boston he had an office. So he did it quite a bit.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214B@yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, tell us about the school and convent.
Okay. School, convent, and I'm going to also mention the rectory, of course. It has a rectory attached to the church, and that's why a lot of people miss it. But in 1925, when the church was built, that rectory was not there. It was a separate building. So the rectory that's now attached to it is from the 1970s. Okay. Now the school itself, remember the arrangement. 1906, the parish formed. 1907, the chapel was built. 1925, the church was built. 1917, the school was built. And it was called Our Lady of the Hope School. And the nuns that taught there were from the Sisters of St. Joseph, SSJ. They taught at a lot of places around Springfield, Holyoke, and Chicopee. And they were great teachers. And of course, at that point, they also built a convent for themselves. Now, a new school and a new convent were built behind the school at some point. All right, so if you go back there, there's a brand new school and convent arrangement. All right, I haven't figured out what decade they're from, but I want to get that down someday. So the campus is quite large now. And it's a appealing looking campus overall.
And what is special about the campus?
Okay. In Springfield, as in many communities around Massachusetts, they could have what's called a local historic district. And this whole campus of Our Lady of Hope Catholic Church is a local historic district. And that means that the facades of all the buildings, rectory, church, school, and convent, have to be kept in a historical look that they started at. And so, thus, they have to maintain it to that standard. Any changes that have to be made on it cannot deviate from this historical look. And they have to have a real important reason to change something over. Maybe a handicap accessible entrance or something. Otherwise, it has to stay the same. And that was imposed by the government of the city of Springfield. So the Catholic Diocese has to keep up on that. And there's, I believe, 18 local historic districts in Springfield, where a lot of other communities around the valley, there's maybe one per community. So there's quite a few here. The Immaculate Conception Church and Indian Orchard, part of Springfield, also is a local historic district on its own campus. And so, thus, these have to be retained in their unique look. Why this campus? Because it's such a unique look, and it's such an important place for the history of immigrants into Springfield. And for that reason, I agree with it, even though it could be considered a burden on the Springfield Catholic Diocese. And they have many others around Springfield. I hope I cover all of them at some point. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of his other podcasts